can of cheese was from 2015.
Yikes, man.
Not good. Not good.
Not good.
Delicious.
So we got Dino and Justin just
Hey
joined us.
guys.
Michael,
Yeah.
you and Daniel got me hooked on that stuff at Bass Player Live. And I remember you saying Bubby got you guys hooked on it.
Oh yeah, it's his fault.
Bubby's the dealer.
Pork rinds, man.
Pork
I'm trying
rinds
to
and
tell you.
hard cheese. I said that to my dietitian one day. She almost threw me out of her office.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
Well, hey, Paulie. The extra hot ones are kosher, so it's good.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
yeah. You just need a little water, man. It compensates for everything else. Just drink a little bit of water, put a little lemon in there, and
There you
you
go.
in the game. You know what I'm
Flush
talking
it all out.
Hey, boys, I got a couple of topics. What do you feel is going to happen when this is all done for the concert aspect? They're already talking about holding back some festivals. I know we're all losing money this summer. What do you feel is going to happen, like, via the fall?
Well,
Anybody got some
I
thoughts on
can't
this?
imagine Woodstock with everybody standing 6 feet apart, but
yeah,
Right.
I'm not even thinking that Winter NAMM is going to happen at this
Right.
point.
I've been thinking about that too.
and even if it does happen, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very reluctant to go.
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. I had a conversation actually the other day with one of my coworkers, and with all the traveling I've been doing over the last couple of years, I'm very hesitant to get on an airplane until there's at least a vaccine, something that
I agree.
will protect us.
I agree.
Just my feelings.
So human trials have started. They started already. So
Really?
Yeah, they have. So it's been publicized, but until we get access to testing that's competent, I think we're spitting in the wind, to be polite. The testing available here is scarce at best, and the guy who's been my doctor for the last 25 years says that the best result they get is 30% false negative.
Wow.
And it's pretty awkward. I mean, we're 110 miles north of New York City, about 80 miles from the last big center of infection, but it's growing here. And there's no place, I mean, they set a post line and there's nowhere to drive in to get it. It just sits there empty. So I think it's going to be a while before things settle down. Certainly the end of summer. And it's nice to go back to work before June, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I read something the other day. I mean, obviously all the concerts, but every other big convention, like Comic-Con, Video Game Developers Convention, the Video Game Convention, all that stuff, all the rest of the year is done, even up until, I think, spring of next year. So, yeah, I'm going to see NAMM show anytime soon. And I read something else that health experts were saying that they don't really want to resume with doing large festivals and concerts till next fall.
All of 21.
Yeah. So Netflix, and they and let me tell you something. Netflix is worth $1 trillion now.
Sure, of course.
Why did you not boxing them jokers, man?
So that leads to the next aspect. That leads to the next question. Like, what are y'all doing for, like, where do you see your money come in the next 6 months? We're all gigging musicians. Where do you see that coming?
You guys are all gigging musicians.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
Not me.
I'm just dependent on you guys. But
Same here.
yeah,
I'm doing a lot of recording for people. Like I do sessions for people all over the world. And that for me literally hasn't changed because that's what I've been doing for like the last couple of years. And the only difference now is that my wife and kids are here. Otherwise, I'd be sitting right. If there was no quarantine, I'd be sitting right where I'm sitting right now. You know,
And that's not bad,
So,
man. Shoot. You know.
Yeah.
Same here.
So, I mean, for some of you guys, there's lessons.
yeah,
You know, you
Lessons
can
too, yeah.
expand your lessons. And it's really possible, I guess, that you could do some online, not so much a pay-per-view, but there ought to be some creative way to do concerts for people and either get a donation or, you know, something.
That's actually booming right now in Japan
Yeah.
and South Korea. A lot of the
Yeah.
big artists are doing these, you know, $20 to come watch me sing for an hour with an acoustic guitar, but it's killing though.
Yeah.
And I mean,
A lot of
people are doing
a
it.
lot of the artists that I work with here in New Hampshire and Northern Mass, they're doing living room concerts and putting their Venmo and PayPal information right behind them. You know, donate $10 or donate $20, and you know they're doing all they
Yeah,
can.
everybody's doing it. I started noticing people's Cash App and Venmo handles like in the title of their videos. And
You know
so,
what?
I
But
mean, you know,
no one's really killing it that well. That's I talked to Dino in our neighborhood. You know, Dino and I live relatively close to each other, and I'm assuming this is going to go all over the world like this. People are making some money, but not much, man. Not like live.
Right.
You know?
Well,
well,
there isn't going to be much live over the next few months.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I mean, I get it.
you know, yeah.
They're saying they won't be live till 2021. So all concerts until
Yep.
summer will be canceled.
I heard the same
It's
thing.
going to be tough.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, the other thing you could do this is a good time. Like, if anybody's an artist, I tell people this every day. If you want to music, there's no excuse right now. Like,
Yep.
do it. Just write music. And at the end of the day, you know, in my field, all these big artists that sign to these labels and stuff, they're still putting records out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they ain't about to be doing no touring, but they still gonna put some.
Yeah.
well, they get
Yeah.
a different kind of money than
They do.
artists.
Yeah.
You know,
They do.
they get that money where they get at home and still be cool.
Yep.
So the way I look at it is like, let me work towards that. You know, I want to be able to sit at home and you know, look at people like, you know, ain't nothing going on, and maybe I can help some people. That's the way I like Quincy Jones and them, man. If he can do it, I can do it. That's what I tell myself every day when I get up here and write music. If he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the way
exactly.
I look at it.
Yep.
Have
That's,
any of you guys gotten into there's a I'm spacing on the name right now. I think it's something like stageit.com or something like that, where basically like you could do a concert and people kind of virtually, but there's a way that you can kind of sell tickets and stuff. I've been wondering about that. I still, there's the tech aspect, obviously. You don't want it to sound like crap, but if there's a way to do that, you could actually do, it seems like you could do an instructional thing too, like a clinic. If you're a solo bassist, do that just outright, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Have any of you guys done anything like that? Or have you guys checked into that? Or have you heard of it?
I have good friends who have been doing Stageit concerts, and they said they've been having good success with them. I'd say go for it.
Is that a website?
Yeah.
I believe it's a website, yeah.
Yeah, the website's not super helpful, at least from the time I checked out. So it didn't kind of have like a top to bottom, you know, this is how you do it. So it seems easier just to kind of do the face thing, but obviously that's monetizing that is a little weird. Yeah.
I could do some research and help you guys figure out the best way to set that up.
That would be great, Paul. If you could just share that with this group, like via email.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
I mean, for me as a career theater guy, it's brutal. It's brutal right now. Like, you know, there's no theater shows, obviously. So
Yeah.
I went out and I bought a new Mac, and new interface is on its way. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to ramp up my skills in this area and do more this way. But, you know, you're going to have to reinvent yourself to some degree. And this is a good place to share where and what you're doing.
Best time to find out what else you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get them side hustles up.
I second
Yeah.
what Bubby was saying, though. I think that there's obviously for the extroverts among us, this time is way more challenging, sort of on a mental health level than or spiritual level than it is for those that are introverts. Did I say that right? Yeah. If you're
Yeah, you
introvert,
said it
you
right.
can cope with this more easily. And my family, I've got both, and so I can, for me, I'm an introvert. I like people, but I definitely kind of recharge by hanging out, by doing my own thing.
Right.
And so for me, this is a super productive time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Introverts are like, cope with what?
but I agree with Bubby that now there's no excuse for any projects you've been holding off on. It's like, nobody's got time for that. I've got gigs or I've got sessions or whatever. It's like you've got built-in time right now.
Oh yeah.
And if you
and you have a captive audience.
Yeah,
Man.
exactly. If you spend 2 or 3 hours a day, even just working on a project that's something that you've had kind of on the back burner or not even on the burner, in a week or two, you've made some pretty decent progress on it.
This is the perfect time, man.
Well, what I was telling Bubby before we all came on, I haven't played this much bass since 17 years old.
Just getting 11 bass players in the same room for 2 hours.
You know what's funny? Since we started this is the first time anybody said bass at all. I was like, wait, it's a bass hang, right?
It's a bass hang.
I got a question for y'all too. On the East Coast, I'm wondering how it is over there, because over here, a lot of people haven't had to pay their rent. They haven't had to pay their mortgages, car notes, and stuff like that. Does that apply everywhere?
So
No, Chase is still looking for their mortgage payment from me.
Yeah, they're still looking for everything.
What's happening in Atlanta, Justin?
well, down here in Atlanta, like it's they'll let you let's say like your car note. They'll let you put your car note on the back end.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, well, for the next 3 months, we'll put that on the back end of your loan, so you don't have to worry about it now. They're still like figuring out the whole rent and mortgage thing now. They're still figuring that out. But during this whole pandemic, they're not shutting off utilities. So I don't know exactly how that's going to go. If it's just going to pile up, then that's going to be a whole different thing. But it's not as crazy as New York, down here. I mean, they just set up a curfew on, say, last week, and our governor was like, "Oh, I didn't know that it was this bad."
I was so crazy, dude. Like, where have you been, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, mind is a terrible thing.
Yeah, see, conversely, I'm up in Michigan, whereas our governor's been going at this full bore since day one.
Yeah.
What part of Michigan?
Governor, that woman.
Wasn't there a protest today? Like a huge
There
automobile protest?
Yeah, there was a big protest up in Lansing in the Capitol because they thought some of her latest stipulations she stopped were a little over the top. And on the one end, I get it because of how it was presented in the press conference last week. It sounded like, all right, why can't people buy paint, or why can't they buy flowers or things? But when you actually read it, it was more of the giant department stores that are like grocery stores, garden centers, things like that. What they were just doing was they were closing it there to limit those places to just, groceries and essentials, to actually allow, less people in, because a lot of people were more abusing the system of like, oh, I'm going to the store to shop for things, but then they would walk around just to get out of the house.
Oh man.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were doing stuff like that. So these things were more of just to like help out these giant stores actually be able to manage everything. And then, people got butthurt about it. Then they thought they would do a huge rally at the Capitol and ended up just gridlocking everything. And then the one major hospital in that area, they blocked the emergency entrance so they couldn't get ambulances in and out. And
Stupid.
Whoa.
yeah, it's not the greatest way to handle stuff, I guess.
Right.
What part of Michigan you in?
I'm in Kalamazoo, so for your geography lessons, it's
Yeah, there it is.
right
There
here.
it is.
Now this giant part here, this is Detroit.
And I'm from
This is
Flint.
actually where our big outbreak is. So over on our side, actually, we're very lucky. It's very, very mild.
Yeah, I'm from Flint, and I got
okay.
So many people within the past week and a half that were infected. A couple of them passed away already. Ooh. This is my thing, man. Okay, this is absolutely nothing to panic over, but it's nothing to take lightly. I went to the store today, and I just so happened to say, oh, it's a nice day. It's 81 degrees out here in LA. I'm in Orange County. So I was like, man, let me go to the store. I got to get some water for Gabby, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to drive from where I am. There's so many jokers out at the beach.
Yep.
Like nothing. And I mean, you know how like what's those things called when people go to a restaurant and they bring like their old school cars? It's like those car clubs, the rallies and stuff.
Yeah.
They were doing that on Pacific Coast Highway. I was just like, dude,
one of the beaches out there were closed. I mean, I surf, so I heard
that was Florida.
Man,
Florida had a big problem.
These jokers was out there barbecuing. I smelled ribs all up and down the street, and it smelled good. What is wrong with y'all?
LA beaches, it's closed.
Yeah.
Massachusetts and New Hampshire beaches are closed.
Yeah. LA
You got too much cold water up there anyway.
I'm in Seattle.
I surf in the winter, so in Boston.
They closed in Seattle too?
Yeah.
Dude, these people were out and about. And I mean, I looked at, I don't know what restaurant it was, Norm's or something, and it's all these hot rods. And I was like, man, y'all jokers just are in la la land, right? Like, I get it. You want to have a good time, but this is not working. It's not working if you keep going out and hanging out and stuff. I don't understand, man.
We have people in New York and New Jersey that are still holding parties of 40, 50 people cater. We had one guy in Rumson, New Jersey, like the home of Bon. He had a 2-person acoustic show with 40 or 50 people sitting very closely that they had to break up. The cops had to. So it doesn't make sense. Like while we're caged, I feel like a caged animal every day. It's like Groundhog Day. Every day I wake up, I run on the treadmill, I drink coffee, I log in, I have Zoom calls all day. And then I go outside, ride my bike with my kids. And then I come in the house, I watch, I take a shower, I go to bed.
Joe.
Every day, same thing.
Joe, my computer is saying that this live is not live anymore. It said it was live.
No, we're live.
We're live, man.
Live. Yeah, it says live.
Yeah, we're live on my Facebook page because it wasn't syncing up with the basic page. So I just put it on my Facebook page.
I have a little fear, man. I do have one little fear, basically, and Joe and Dino could probably talk about this. In the Northeast, out here on the East Coast, man, when it gets to, if we're still stuck in here, like in June, the chuckleheads in this part of the area, like we're slightly more aggressive than we're not as laid back as in the West Coast. Dino's laughing, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm
laughing at chucklehead. I've never heard that.
It's true. You're not going to be able to keep these mother effers inside. There you are not.
No. The only reason why we've been kind of good about it is because it's been nice out, but it's just too damn cold. There's no snow, so nobody can go skiing, and it's just too cold to do anything outside. So everybody's kind of staying in. But like Tony's saying, once the weather starts getting warm, I mean, I've already been out. I got to admit, I go out and do my, I do the grocery shopping and the trip to the hardware store.
Yeah, but that's okay.
No, but
that's cool.
I go out on the motorcycle by myself, or sometimes I'll meet my brother and we'll ride together, but we're still 6 feet apart. Yeah. And even that, I feel guilty that I'm out enjoying myself when everybody else is kind of locked up in the house. So
did you ever feel
I'm just jealous you got your bike out. Ours won't be out of storage now for another 6 weeks.
Oh man, sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to throw that
It's
out there.
funny.
That's
Like
all right.
I look at going to the grocery store or to Target as like a day out for me. Like it's a nice outing for me. I'm excited. We're going to Target. We going to Target right now.
Oh, man, who doesn't love
I went to
Target?
Target and I got 2 packs of toilet paper yesterday, and I felt really good.
Man,
You're lucky they don't have any here.
dude, do you know I literally just 2 days ago, I'm gonna take a picture. That's gonna be my new Instagram post for tonight. I found a 30-something pack of toilet tissue. I lost my mind. And we hadn't bought no toilet tissue since we got back from Japan. So I've been back since February 24th. And we just had whatever we had in the cabinet. Man, we was down to about 2 rows, and you already know how I be hitting the bathroom, man. Like, I was worried. Like,
It's the cheese, the squirt cheese, and
Yeah, the
Right.
pork rinds, yeah.
Right.
but you know what, though? You got to improvise, man, because what was killing is them baby wipes. See, the baby wipes have you smelling good, man. You got to use them baby wipes.
Yeah, but that was a secret. That was a secret that everybody picked up on. Everybody was going nuts with the toilet paper and the baby wipes stopped. So I
baby
stocked
wipes
up on
are
the
good.
baby wipes. You can keep
The
your
baby
All that
wipes.
stuff is not available up here in Kingston.
None
Well,
whatsoever.
Here also,
We
nothing's
have a
available.
thing
Hey,
called Sam's
did-
Club,
did-
and you can call in
Mm.
an order if you're over 65. They'll pick it for you. So I'm old enough I can get away with that. But I went to the door with my requisite mask and goodies on,
Mm.
and there's a woman standing there pulling the sanitary wipes out by the handful and stuffing them in her purse before she goes into the store.
yeah.
And
see,
there's none available in Sam's Club, Walmart, all of the grocery stores.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Somebody was really enterprising on the toilet paper hoarding, and it was 1 pack $3.99, 2 packs $99.99, and that seemed to put a stop to hoarding. But
Yeah.
it's,
Wow.
people are
The
nuts.
guy at the gas station with the hand sanitizer. There was a hand sanitizer dispenser at the
Oh,
gas pump.
yeah.
Yeah,
He was filling his coffee cup with it.
Yeah, he was jacking it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's 60% alcohol. You can get a good drunk off of it, but
Not that we would know that, Mike.
oh
Wait,
no, not us.
speaking of which, Mike, what are you drinking tonight, Mike?
Devil's Cut.
Yeah, what's
Jim
everyone
Beam.
drinking?
Yeah,
What are you drinking? Devil's Cut.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Really
a
nice
musician
bourbon.
in a bottle.
Jim Beam.
That's
I'm
Okay.
boring.
Going light.
Us gospel musicians
Modelo.
out here don't know
Nice.
what y'all
Klingon
talking
and green
about
tea.
right
Klingon
Oh,
coffee.
Norm, you're
Right.
sipping.
Frappuccino.
Costco.
essential water. There
Be
you go,
careful with
Justin.
that green tea, Norm. You know, you have to limit yourself on that.
So I got a question for Paul. Paul, number one, how are your parents doing out on the island, and how's Nashville treating you?
Nashville's been really great, man. You know, I've been lucky enough to have a studio in the house, and songwriting is such a big thing here in Nashville. So been doing a lot of that remotely with friends and my production partner across the street. So I've been focusing mostly on songwriting production, and it's nice to be out of New York, man. I was living in apartments for the past 10 years. So here in Nashville, I'm in a house, and, the dogs have room to run around. And
This guy, Jonathan.
The troublemaker joined.
Yeah, Jonathan, you look like you've been drinking real heavy.
He pre-gamed before he got here.
Yeah,
Hey, dude, this is freaking weird, man.
What's
yeah.
so weird?
Hey, Bubby.
Yeah.
I ain't used to this high-tech technology stuff here.
Oh, man.
No.
Retired life,
Paul, are
eh?
you still in the same house?
still in the same house. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
nice
went back
place.
to work.
Really
Thanks.
nice neighborhood.
Thanks, man.
We gonna be all right, y'all.
Yep.
We gonna be all right. I mean, it's wild. It is wild, man. And I mean, it's funny. I'm about to say, I told my wife, everybody here knows Gabby. I told Gabby the other day, like I'm talking to some people I don't know. I told Gabby the other day, I think about if my mother and father was here, what would they be saying, like witnessing all this? Like this is I ain't gonna lie, like in the beginning, I knew it was serious, but I was like, oh, we'll make it. We made it through Y2K, but this junk is different.
Yeah.
It's very different, and
Andrew.
I just it kills me that so many people aren't just doing that small part to just say, man, I'm not gonna go hang out. I still got homies here that's going to the studio and stuff, and it's just I just don't understand why people. But it affects you when it actually hits home and it's somebody you really know.
Yep.
And I wish, I don't know who's gonna watch this video, but I just hope people will keep that in mind. Some junk like that. That's gonna, that's when you're gonna take this and don't let it get.
Bubby, 9 right now. I know 9 people personally who have it who are in the process. 14 wrong. But I know 9 people positively diagnosed with COVID-19.
And I know about 12 that died.
Oh, Jesus
already. And
I'm
most
sorry
of them,
for your loss, brother.
Most of them, like, just go, uncle, he died or is diagnosed with it right now. And we don't know what's going on with her. But I mean, it's not a game, man. And I just, it drives me nuts to see like these young kids and stuff like that just don't get it. They just don't get it.
Hey, Bubby, were they all in the same area?
In Flint, yeah, this was Flint, Michigan.
Wow.
You said what, Gooch?
I think because there's been so much conflicting information, from everywhere. It's like people don't know what to believe. Me and my family, we choose to err on the side of caution. But at the end of the day, you got 20 people saying 20 different things. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people is, and it doesn't help that the guy in charge said all that crap he said.
Oh my goodness.
Initially, he steered that attitude. He steered the country into having that attitude about the whole thing.
I mean, just from the beginning of doing little, and I don't want to even hop into politics because then I'm gonna start turning purple. But just from the very beginning, saying little stuff, calling it the Chinese virus, like, man, you tact.
He said it was a hoax.
You gotta have tact, and it is. And the other thing is, this virus, it was here a long time ago. Haley had it first in December before we went back to Japan. She had it. They didn't know how to classify it. They were just saying she had pneumonia. Then me and Gabby had it, and we actually had it on the flight going back to Japan. It was just like the flu. Come to find out later, and they even reported that the other day that it was here potentially in like October of last year, but man, and Norm,
they said that was a hoax. That it wasn't here in the fall. It was more.
Man, this mug was
Do
here.
they really know, man?
No, they don't.
That's what I'm saying, man. They say so many things, and
you don't know what to believe.
I wonder. I was really, really sick after NAM. The week after I got home from NAM, and you think about how many hands you shake, how many people you hug, and all of that, man. And I don't know that I didn't have it because I felt like somebody was beating my whole body with a baseball bat.
Well,
the week after I got back from NAM.
I lost. I started coming down with the cough Friday night into Saturday, and then Saturday 7 o'clock, I was over at the CVS Minute Clinic with 102 fever.
Yeah. I had a fever, had all of that. Yeah.
They said a lot of people got sick downstairs.
And Holly. They took one guy out on a stretcher.
Oh yeah.
Then go to the hospital. I think we had it at NAM.
I do too.
Daniel and I have had the same symptoms since the last day of the show. We've had them consistently through. Daniel's girlfriend's been diagnosed with it, and we'll finally get her test results back tomorrow. She works in a rehab clinic where they imported people from the city without testing them, gave them no safety gear whatsoever. So he's been home taking care of her, but his symptoms haven't changed. So we've had the same. I think we've all. If you went to NAM, I think you got
We
exposed.
definitely
Yeah,
did.
absolutely.
And
If
the-
anything, at least your immune system's been boosted up from it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but
and
they
there's
also
something else that's going to happen at NAM, like culturally speaking. You know, there's a lot of hugging and loving at NAM, right?
Mhm.
That's probably going to
And
spur some
Yeah.
of it.
Man,
If not that,
we gonna have to do just like Japan and everybody bow.
yeah,
You know what I'm talking about, Norm? I'm talking about Norm. We gonna bow. Y'all jokers better. You see that? You see that? Wear a mask.
You know, and it's funny because the last couple of years, Ken Haas from Reverend Guitars would never shake hands or anything, and I've known him for a long time. He would only fist bump or elbow bump, and I would always joke with him about it. Now I'm looking back and like, he was probably way ahead of
Yeah.
us.
Hey man. Hey
Yeah.
man. The way I
Elian was
see
like that. He didn't want to shake hands.
yeah. And then Elon.
I
And,
met Les
and I
Claypool
did
2 summers ago, and he wouldn't shake my hand. He only gave me a fist bump, and then he was like staying away, but he was doing it with everybody, and I was offended by it. And now
Nothing personal.
who was that?
Yeah, it was probably personal.
Les.
Oh,
And the week before NAMM show, I was at a CES convention in Vegas. And one of the Boss Pedal guys, Jeff Slingler, he had to leave on the third day. And he basically, long story short, he couldn't come to NAMM show. This dude was in the hospital for over a week, and he almost died. And guess what they told him? He had COVID. Now, this was at CES before NAMM show.
So that was still in January?
This was in January. This is
Yep,
the
early
first week
January.
of January. Yeah. Man, this mug been here, man. It's been here, and yeah, you right, Gooch. The cat that's spilling all the stuff, taking it lightly. I mean, I don't want to turn purple.
And we're supposed to be talking.
All right,
about
bass.
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about bass. Bass.
I love bass.
Bass. Yeah.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm digging the beard, man. That is so cool.
It is what
Kind of
it
like
is,
Papa
bro.
Smurf, but it's got the black thing in it.
Okay.
So, Andrew, I want to see your Laker bass.
Disneyland
Yes,
won't be
it
open?
is.
Okay, so Gabby just gave me some info. Disneyland is for sure shut down.
It's been shut down. Disney
I
World
mean,
been shut down.
it's been shut down, but they were going to try and open back up.
Disney World is shut down too.
No, Disney World's been shut down for months. Enough with the.
Yeah, it's been shut down for about a month and a half, but they were
Look
going
at
to try and
beautiful
open
face.
back up in fall.
What did you say?
Mike, did you do that paint job or did somebody else do that?
Q did it.
Okay.
We have sort of run out of capacity to paint. And Q, who was doing Robert Gerhard, was doing painting for Spectre and Brian Moore and a whole bunch of other people. He's a really talented painter. Has been doing the body work. We're still painting next and doing some top coats, final coats. But the majority of what has been going on after they're sanded out and we put color and stuff on them has been going to Q for sealing and base coating. The shop is just too small. It's an 860 square foot shop with 4 guys in it. And we had to hire a really skinny guy, skinnier than Norm actually.
No.
So he could get in, but
Were
so
that
get in
possible?
between some of the machines. Olivier is 6 feet tall and weighs
Yeah, Olivier is tiny, man.
146 pounds.
Tiny.
Yeah, he's that big around and stronger than me and Daniel put together. It's crazy. He's like all wire.
Justin.
Jonathan, what's going on?
What up, baby?
Hey, you know something? So I need to get my headless adjusted a little bit because the different weather that was in Japan. But the only people that I ever allow to touch my bass is Mike, Dan, and Gooch. That's it.
Well,
like when
Tina. Tina up at the amp shop in the Valley.
Oh, you trust him then? Okay.
I trust Tina. She's amazing.
Oh, I'm the
Hey,
same.
He's
related
amazing,
question.
huh?
Hey, for all you guys out there, Joe on just keep it on base.
With everyone home recording now, what are you using for DIs? Let's go around. Like, Bubby, you
DIs?
start.
What do I got? I have a radio, a couple of them. I don't know, the blue and the green one. I don't know. I just plug my joint in. I just plug that mug in and just go. Like, I use my Plex, my GK Plex. Yeah.
The latest and the greatest. Well, same thing for me. It's the Ready. The Red DI.
Yeah, we have Ready here. That's a great
Yeah, that's
one.
what I've
You know
been
who's
using.
come out with a really nice new one? Is Kerry Nordstrand.
Really?
Yep. He gave Daniel and I one to try out after NAMM, and I don't play in any way, shape, or form needing a DI, but we've loaned it to a couple people locally, and it's quite spectacular.
Is it big?
Yeah, it's the blue one, right?
I think it is the blue one. Yeah, it's about half the weight of the Ready and a little more rectangular. It's not really big. It's about.
Is that what we had in Nashville last year?
No,
Okay.
that I forget that cat's name, but the guy.
But that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really good. And the guy at bass player then was bass player. Brought it over to us, but for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it.
That wasn't key cards.
If you get a chance, check out Kerry's new thing.
I go between the Avalon U5 and the Plex.
Yeah, I just come out of the back of my amp and into I have the Apollo Quad 16, and I mean honestly, I can just go straight into the Apollo. It's so amazing that
MTD,
you know, yeah,
Life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I like the Ready as well as the API A to D. I think this thing's a monstrous. Plugging right in, yeah.
Yeah, I just plug in, man. You know, it ain't much I gotta do. Just plug my joint in and.
There you go. I got a U5, but I don't use that for bass at all.
Yeah.
I've been a long time Ready guy, but I've started using live the Rupert Neve DI.
Yeah, that's great.
But
that's
Use
amazing.
that live. That's nice.
that's a Neve. That's Neve.
That's a Neve, man, and I
Nice.
became an artist for them right before this crap happened, and I can mount it to my board, and that goes to the front of the house. So I
Nice.
got a couple of
Nice.
these. Yeah.
That thing is warm. Like it has
Yeah, a lot of guys say that's like a more affordable Noble DI. A lot of guys recommend that if you don't want to spend the money on a Noble.
What's good about this for the bright basses, like the MTDs and so forth like that, there's a harmonic structure to the lower mids, and it just sweetens the highs a little bit. It just takes off that brittle stuff that you can find in the radials, and I've been digging it because it's on my
No,
board.
tell me what is that called again? What's it called?
This is the Rupert Neve DI.
Neve. So is it like on a Neve website or something?
Right. Well, Rupert Neve Designs. Yeah.
Okay.
Which this is this is killer, and then live it's fantastic. By the way, I have to tell you, since you're on this call, you are my wife's favorite bass player.
Tell her I said thank
Not me. You are.
That's great.
I might have to call her down just to say hi.
Cool. I'm my wife's favorite bass player too. I'm gonna tell you what's funny. My wife, when I first met her, I met her at church. She didn't even know there was such a thing as bass guitar. She thought I played the guitar, and she noticed me because I was back then. This was like I was playing with Gladys Knight in the '90s, and a lot of times with Gladys, we would work like 40 weeks out of the year. So I would have to sometimes leave in the middle of church to go to the airport. And my wife told me she thought I was real arrogant. She was like, "Who does he think he is?
I remember
Ending up leaving in the middle of service." But the funny thing is now, because she's a CPA and she didn't even know there was such thing as bass, but now she can always tell when it's me playing on the track, she was like, I heard this record and I knew it was you. And I'm like, what record? I'm like, yep, that was me. And it's funny.
Yeah, my wife Gabby, she didn't really understand the bass, but she kind of dissed me though, man, because her brother plays bass and she thought bass was whack because she thought he was whack. And I was like, dang, man. So she didn't know what it sounded like until I really started talking to her. But man, she dissed her brother. She dissed me. She said, yeah, I just always thought it was whack because my brother is whack.
That's hilarious.
I was like, dang, man. Brotherly
My
love.
wife hates it also. My wife hates that I play bass.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Love over here.
It's a long story, but yeah. She can't say it.
Which one is the one that you have?
The Rupert DDI?
Yeah, is it
Check it out.
RND1. Isn't it the RNDI?
RNDI. Correct.
RNDI.
Moody. I saw Jon Moody had a video on it, and I got turned on to it. I have a conversation and a little chat going on with Jon Moody and Steve Rao all the time. And we're nerds. We're like, what are you using in the studio right now? So, we're always going back and forth.
That's exactly how we talk.
Is that how you talk?
That's
He plays bass. Rock Mount thing. You gotta check it out. It's really cool.
We're real exciting people, right?
Really low frequencies here.
Hey, can I ask something? Since we're all hanging out, many of us are MTD, if not all of us MTD guys, I'm kind of curious how each of us got in, how we discovered MTD and why we, when it was that we got into it. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, so in college, well, actually before college, when I was in high school, I played drums. I still do, and I went to Gospel Music Workshop of America. And
you have to explain to them what that is.
So GMW,
I know what that is.
GMW, Gospel Music Workshop of America. It's a huge convention. Gospel musicians, singers, songwriters, artists from all over the world. Actually, they'll come together for a weekend. Andrew was over top of the youth back when I was younger, and then I didn't know who he was, but I was playing drums and he was on bass. And I couldn't stop listening. Like I wasn't playing pocket. He was like, man, play pocket. I'm like, I can't. You're just so great on the bass. So
Andrew strikes again.
So when I picked up bass, when I went to Berkeley, I was looking for a bass, and I went to Berkeley with Tim Robbins Williams, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
And I would play Tim's MTD in school, and when it was time for me to buy one, I said, I already know what I want. I already know I want to buy me an MTD, so I bought one from Bass Central down in Florida. And what's funny is I bought it because it was brown. I said, it matches my skin color, so I like it. I didn't know anything about wood combinations, electronics, no nothing. I was like, it's brown. But when I got it, ash body, ash neck, rosewood fingerboard, and the walnut top. And it, amazing bass. And that same year, I went to NAMM show, and that was my first time meeting Mike, and been here ever since.
What number was that MTD?
Dang. Unfortunately, I had to sell it back in 2012.
It was way after yours, man.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But while I still had it, Mike made this one, while I still had that one, and the number on this one is, I can't really see it. 1584.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of those in invisible ink, unfortunately. I never knew that stuff would fade like that. And after about 2 years, there's about 5 years worth of bases that you can't see the serial numbers anymore.
I got a great Mike Tobias story for you guys. So I've known Michael for years and years and years.
Since MI on Cahuenga Boulevard.
Exactly. And for years, well, probably the last 10 years or so, I'd be on Michael's website, sitting on the couch with my laptop, and I'd be perusing some of his basses, and I would show my wife. Hey, honey, what do you think of this bass? Hey, honey, what do you think of that bass? Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And I was playing other brands at the time too. Fast forward to, let's see, I just celebrated my 53rd birthday. So 3 years ago, I come home from work, and it's my 50th birthday, and they send me out to the garage. My kids and my wife send me out to the garage to go get the cake or whatever. And I come back in, and there's a brand new MTD sitting on the living room couch.
Wow.
Nice.
It's wonderful. So, and I bet you not many of you probably have a headstock that says "Happy 50th." Oh my God.
Nice.
So through all this, of course, I mean, I still get choked up over this, man. I'm trying not to cry right now, but so anyways, you know, so this is my first MTD. Now, mind you, my birthday was in February, okay? She had called, and this is totally not something my wife would do. She had contacted Michael back in September to start getting this set up. And we all know, you know, Mike's always busy. He's like, well, I'll try and get something together for you. And, you know, for Dino, yeah. Anyways, I had seen Michael in October for Bass Player Live. He knew he was already building this bass for me. Never said a word. And I saw him again in January at NAMM. Again, he knew the space was like just about done and never said a word to me. So finally, after I talked to him, I was like, dude, I don't know how you kept a straight face every time I saw you, and you knew you were building this bass for me. He goes, I never met your wife in person, but I have a feeling through our correspondence that if I had given this up, she would have come out to Woodstock and killed me.
He still sounds like an angel to me.
So you know, so this is how I've got this 534, and I just got a Saratoga from him this year, and
Nice.
I am sold on it by all means. Thank you, Michael.
Well, I gotta
Thank you,
thank
guys.
Joe for like letting the
You guys.
token Mike Lull guy in the group here. You know, sorry about it.
Well, Mike Lowe was a great cat, and rest in peace, Michael. He was wonderful.
I love him. I
Yeah,
love him to death.
very
I
good
really
guy.
do.
Yeah.
I actually, my Mike Tobias story started in 1987. I was in New York. I was playing with Billy Preston, and you know, back in the day, anytime you went to, if you were from anywhere in the country, and you were a musician, if you went to New York, you had to go over on 48th Street.
Yeah.
All the music
48
stores were.
music
So it was
pro.
like pilgrimage. Like you don't go to New York and don't go over on 48th Street. And back then, like everybody else, I was playing Fenders. And the drummer and I went to Manny's and
Rudy's,
Sam Ash and all of that. And then we went to walk by Rudy's, and there was this bass sitting in the window. And I told the drummer, I said, man, look at that bass, dude. I said, I know if I play it, I'm gonna want it. I'd never seen anything like it. So we went in, and I asked the guy, it was funny, Dean, who's I think still works.
Yeah,
for
he
Rudy's.
does.
Dean was there, and I talked to him, and I asked him about the bass, and he picked it up, and let me, you know, put my hands on it. And then when I put my hands on it, it was nothing like anything I'd ever felt. And then we plugged it in, and I played it, and then I was like, there's absolutely no way this bass sounds like this. There's no way. And I think SWR had not too long come out back then, and it was plugged into an SWR amp. So I told the guy, I said, take it out of that amp and put it in this little cheesy amp over here, some little, like probably maybe 30 or 40 watt amp. And I plugged it in there, and it still sounded amazing. And I saw the T on there. I asked him what it stood for. He told me Tobias. And he asked me where we were from. I said, LA. He said, well, you know, the shop is in LA. And then that's when I remembered seeing Tobias guitars on
Yeah.
Cahuenga, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I drove by that place a million times, but because it said guitars, I never paid it any attention. And so this was I think a Sunday. I got back home on Sunday. Monday morning, I got up, drove straight over to that shop and knocked on the door. There was a chain on the door. And when Bob Lee opened the door, he cracked the door. And I said, hey man, look, I just got back from New York and I saw one of you guys' basses, man, and it blew me away. And I introduced myself to him and he knew who I was. So because he knew who I was, he let me in. And so I walk in and I look over to the right up on this shelf and there's all these beautiful guitars. It smelled like, I don't know, I could smell all the stain,
Wood dust and
paint.
lacquer fumes, yeah.
Yeah, I could smell all of that stuff, but it was just like, I saw a bass, he pulled one down and he let me play it, and which wound up being the first one that I ever got. It was Cocobolo and Purple Heart wood, and I played the bass, and Mike was over across the room working working on a bench over there. And then when I started playing, he turned around and he came over and introduced himself to me, and I told him, you know, the whole story. And I've been playing Mike's basses ever since. And
Do you still have that bass?
not anymore. I just, before I moved, a friend of mine, I sold it to him. He really wanted it. And a good friend of mine, Tony Delgado, has it now. That bass is funny. That bass has traveled around so much. I think Freddie Fluellen had it for a little while, and a couple of other people had it. But it still looks, it looks as good as it did the first time I ever laid eyes on it. The beautiful bass. But it's funny because my taste evolved. So the Tobias, those basses like don't feel good to me anymore. And I had a couple of them, and the one I played on this gospel album that for this choir called the Mississippi Mass Choir, that everybody was in love with, that red one, 6-string. I loved the way it sounded, but I hated the way it felt. And because everybody always goes, man, why don't you have that bass? Everybody wants that bass because it sounded so good on the record. But the first time I played MTD was the Poplar one that I got from you, Mike, right?
1998. No.
Oh, it was earlier than that.
Yeah.
Earlier
No.
93 or 94.
No. The Poplar MTD.
Yeah.
Was 98. It was 98.
Was it really?
Because
wow.
It was 98. And in fact, yeah, it was 98 because the reason I know the time was when I was doing my Sunday night event. I have video from December 97. And I got that bass from you in January of 98. And I just been playing MTDs ever since, man. And I tell people talk, I listen to people talk about wood combinations. I hear guys going, yeah, I'm going to order me an MTD. I'm going to get it such and such a wood. And I'm going to have Mike do this. But to me, and I tell them, that's like going into the operating room and telling the surgeon what tools to use when he's operating on it.
Exactly.
And I tell people, I said, Mike knows my sound, and he makes it. That's why, Mike, how many times have I called you and asked you what
wood this bass is?
Made of?
Yeah, a lot.
I don't know. Yeah, so
I'm
that's my story.
the exact same way.
Yeah.
All right. So my story about Tobias. I'm from Flint, Michigan, and you could either buy a Sam's bass or a Walmart bass or whatever the bases were that they had at Sears or Hudson's. That's pretty much all you could do in Flint. We didn't really have no music stores. Everybody had to drive to Detroit. So when I wanted to play bass, I had heard about Tobias, but where I come from, that was like the legendary Excalibur sword. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody has access to that where I'm from. So long story short, my first bass was oh Lord have mercy, a Cort Kerbo 5. And the action was like 2 yards off the neck. It was literally like this. That helped me build up some speed, though. I ain't gonna lie. But that was my first base, and I'll never forget. I went to my first NAM in, I think, 03. And again, I had heard of Mike Tobias. I had heard the name, but it was like, that was like Merlin. You know what I'm saying? Like just this legendary person that no one sees and all this kind of stuff. And Andrew Gouche. I was at the Ken Smith booth or something like that, and I was jamming with, I don't know who. I gotta tell the story.
But you're not gonna tell it because he's too humble to tell the actual story.
I'm gonna tell the story.
Let me say this. Bubby was sitting down playing, and all these other bass players were coming up and trying to battle with him on bass. They were trying to battle with him, and Bubby was literally annihilating bass players one by one. And I'm sitting there going, who the hell is this kid? He is amazing. Okay. And then I said, come here, man. I said, come here. And now you talk.
All right, so I was at this booth. I was jamming with some people. Okay, this is my
he was annihilating people. He was cutting their heads off.
My side of the story. And so I opened up my eyes, and all I see was this big black dude, and I thought he was a security guard. And all I know is he was like, you come with me. And so at that point, all I heard was like white noise, because I thought he was about to kick me out of the NAMM show. I didn't, he was like asking me all these questions, and I was just like, Y'all remember them Nextel, the little chirp phones? So I turned it down in my pocket, and I was trying to chirp my sister to let her know, like, hey, I'm about to get put out the NAMM show. I thought I did something wrong. So he took me to Mike's booth, and I'll never forget. As you were actually taking me over there, that's when I seen Dan walking past. And Gouche made me sit down and play a bass. And then Mike introduced himself to me.
Because I told Mike, I said, Mike, you have to hear this kid play, man.
And that was a whammy for me, though, man, and I feel like Gouche had already told me his name, but I was too afraid to even pay attention to what he was saying. And then after Mike said, my name is Mike Tobias, he gave me his card, blah, blah, blah. And then Gouche was like, what's your name again? And I was like, Bubby. And he said, yeah, I'm Andrew Gouche. Then I was like, oh my goodness. I just met Andrew Gouche and Mike Tobias. But see, we used to read the cassette tapes and stuff like that. So I thought your name was pronounced Gouche. That's what me and Eddie used to say, Andrew Gouche. That's what I was a teenager, man. I was a young teenager, man. I ain't know no better. Literally, me and Eddie used to be like, man, did you hear Gouche on that record? Did you hear Gouche? Like, we didn't know. We didn't know what, man.
I'm going to interrupt and tell a story about your dad. You guys came to the Summer NAMM show the next year to pick up your bass. And for years, we had been getting joke badges from NAMM. Cash Calloway, Hugh DeMann, all these dopey names that we made up. And I got Bubby and the Reverend Jerry Lewis a badge. And NAMM refused to believe that the Reverend Jerry Lewis was a real guy. So in order to get his badge, I had to take Bubby and his dad down to the NAMM office. And this gentleman actually had to show them his driver's license to prove that he was the Reverend Jerry Lewis.
Man, I will never forget that. And that first bass, man, mahogany, solid mahogany. Yep. That's the only bass I have that I well, aside from my signatures, I actually know the wood combo. It's solid mahogany, maple neck, and rosewood fingerboard. Yep. And I think it was number 1364 or something like that. It was 13 something, the serial number, but I had to like teach myself how to play bass all over again because I was so used to having to dig a lot on that chord I had. Even when I'll never forget when I made it back to Flint, we drove. I drove my dad. He was too sick to drive. And that was my first time driving a long distance. It rained and everything. And that Sunday, or no, that choir rehearsal that we had that following week, I brought my new bass to church. And I started playing that mug and, you know, then played it on Sunday. And then one day, Eddie, the guy that played organ at the church, he stopped me in rehearsal and he said, man, you got a good bass now. You ain't got to play so hard. I was so used to like digging because my action was terrible. So I had to teach myself all over again about touch and feel and stuff. It changed everything for me though, man. And now I feel like I play too soft because I don't even have to do nothing in order to get them notes to come out, you know?
Yeah, similar, same here. Like I had a Yamaha BBG 5-string before my MTD. And when I played my MTD, I was like, this thing, it's not even plugged in. And it just, it made me want to practice. It made me want to play, you know? So that was like, yeah.
It's always funny.
Instruments.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say super expressive instruments. You know, I remember when I first started getting into MTD, people would, you know, kind of pick up my bass and play it, and they'd be talking about how it's, you know, it's kind of unforgiving because everything comes out, you know, every little thing you do comes out. And I'm like, yeah, that's every little thing comes out. That's awesome, you know?
That's the point, yeah.
Sometimes that's not a good thing.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I always think about playing modulus is like, you know, it makes a good player sound good and it makes a bad player sound worse because every little thing's accentuated, right?
Yeah. Hey, so my MTD story is that I was my older brother, who's a guitar player, about 5 years older than me. He was in a band in Hawaii, and I went to his band rehearsal one night when I was out there, and the bass player had the most incredible slap tone I'd ever heard, and it was an MTD, and I think I've told you this, Michael, so I mean, no offense at all.
Who was the bass player?
Anthony Holyfield.
Oh my God.
The ex-NFL player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice guy.
Sweetheart.
And,
He's as big as me and Andrew and Dino put together.
Yeah, big guy, but super good guy. And I remember, I was just about to apologize to you front but at first I wasn't really that into the look of the headstock. It grew on me, but so I was kind of like MTD, huh? You know, but I could not get over the tone and the playability. And so shortly after that, I called you, and you know, it's like the phone rings and picks up, and you're actually answering the phone, you know, which was kind of blank.
Right.
But and so I was describing the bass, and you said, oh yeah, you know, Anthony Holyfield, yeah, I know that bass, and it's got this wood combination. And so echoing what Bubby and Gouche said,
Right.
But yeah, it was absolutely not it made no sense for me to prescribe any different woods. That's obviously the wood combination that had that tone, right? Yeah. So later that year, I was on a road trip and I was out near New York, and I picked it up, and it was MTD 535 number 252, the blue one with the Wenge neck, Wenge fingerboard. And I've been an MTD crazed addict ever since.
It was after dithering over the color for 7 months.
You still play it, Norm?
I kept flip-flopping. Yeah, I kept wanting red. Oh, no, wait. I called him back the next day. You didn't do red? Okay, good. Blue, for sure blue. And then the next day, red, right? So I eventually settled on blue.
So, who was the guy that used to do your artwork for your ads? I forget his name.
TJ Hill.
Yeah. So he took a photo of you with that bass and then photoshopped it with all these bizarre highlights in the colors. So there was red and green and all sorts of sparkly stuff going on in it. And it got into
said bass. They never did, but yeah.
Yeah, well, the bass doesn't look like that in real life or in a photograph. And so when that picture came out in Bass Player, I started getting 3 or 4 calls a week wanting a bass done in that color. And there's no physical way to reproduce what you can do in Photoshop. And within a year, that became the Norm Stockton blue. And that was your legacy from PJ messing
I'm
with
sorry.
that photograph. I'm not.
Wow.
I'm thrilled. Are you kidding? That was hysterical.
It's
Norm,
an
you still have that
MTD
the
Adobe
original bass?
product. What's that?
You still have the original bass? You still play it often?
I do, absolutely. I still love it, and I played it on one of the tracks from Grooves and Sushi. But honestly, this is the one I play 98% of the time because it kind of does. Because it kind of does what that one does, but it also does kind of the J thing.
Right.
And a lot more. So it's kind of one size fits all sort of instrument for me. So, but yeah, that Wenge, that first MTD is still awesome.
Yeah.
What wood combination is your bass?
Myrtle burl, top, poplar body, Wenge neck and board.
Are you talking about the signature or the first one?
Oh, the first
The signature.
Alder and quilt on top, quilted maple on top, alder body, maple neck, titanium inserts, and a bird's eye board.
It's a beautiful bass.
Nice. That's so funny, man. Mike knows. He knows every single bass pretty much he ever made. He knows like
the
year. My memory's getting a little sparse, but there's still a lot of them that I can recall.
I got a question. What is the wood combination on my MIDI bass, the synth bass? I don't
that's
even remember you
the flamed eucalyptus top.
Okay.
I
was going to take a wild guess.
A Tasmanian Blackwood back.
Okay.
A Tassie Blackwood, which is actually related to Koa, but like African acacia is related to Koa. Some very enterprising bird probably ate some of the fruit and dropped it in the ocean along the way, and it floated off to Hawaii and became a tree, and after several thousand years became its own species. But Tasmanian Blackwood, African acacia, and Koa are family members, though they're not the same. And I think a maple neck and a Honduran board.
The most common question, the whammy bass, the tremolo bass, what is that? I just know it's bird's eye maple fretboard. That's all I know.
That's an ash top, a figured ash top on a poplar or alder body. I'd have to see it to tell you.
That's the gray one.
Oh, the gray one.
That's the one, and the Ambonia burl or whatever.
The Ambonia burl knob.
Yeah, that's all I know. That and birds, man. People be like, man, what kind of songs? I don't know none of that junk.
The funny part is,
Bubby.
People ask about these wood combinations like they actually know what it means when you tell them.
I know.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna tell you. When we were kids, my father took us to this boat show. I don't know why we went to the LA boat show at the convention center because my dad was never going to get a boat. And I remember I was 8 years old, but I remember him asking the guy, so what's the gear ratio on that thing? And I looked at my dad like, gear ratio? Like if he tells you, you're gonna know. So that's what I feel like when people start asking about all these wood combinations. It's like, you don't know?
And I mean, I get it. Like some people, maybe they do, go the extra mile to figure out.
They don't know.
I don't know. People be asking me about electronics and what does this switch do? I don't know. It just makes it louder. Like that's all I can tell you.
My question for Mike is: do you have one particular popular wood combination? What's the most common MTD?
There are several. The poplar body, myrtle burl top, Wenge neck was for years the signature voice. Maple burl alder with a maple neck, and either a purple heart, bird's eye maple, or bloodwood board. That's another very common, common isn't the right word, but it's
Desirable.
desirable, but very audible. You can hear that by itself.
Yeah.
And then a walnut top, ash body, ash neck, and a bird's eye board. Those three combos are probably the most requested, partly because of Andrew playing his signatures, Norm on his, and the walnut and ash with an ash neck is so aggressive and so growly, you actually have to tame it down a little bit to make it warm and sweet. It'll do that, but it becomes very powerful. I was going to ask you, if I put up a picture on the computer screen, will you guys be able to see it?
Yeah, you can probably just share your monitor, share your screen.
All right, so that's above my technical ability. How do I do that?
You hit the share button on the bottom.
Share screen. All right.
There you go.
So, basic, advanced, and then.
Then once we do this, we got to hear Paul's story.
Well, you can do Paul's story while I figure out how to find this and put it up here to share.
Yeah, take your time, Mike.
Go ahead. I'm gonna probably blank you out a bit, but I'll be listening.
No worries. Yeah, I was fresh out of college, living in New York City, and was studying bass with Patrick Pfeiffer. And he had several MTDs, and I got my hands on one, and I just knew that was going to be the bass for me, because I don't know, for me playing MTD, it's like you're no longer playing bass, you're playing an MTD. You know,
Right.
you play chords, and it feels like playing a piano. You know, I grew up playing piano, so now I'm playing piano on my bass. You know, I'm playing melodies on my bass, and that's something I never found in any other bass that I've played. And I don't know why, but I grabbed my first MTD earlier, and this is it here. You remember these, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
It's a sweet bass too.
Yeah, quilted
Maple on top, black limbo back, maple neck, and I think a bird's eye board. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
nice.
And, you know, also watching Gouche and Bubby play MTD got me, you know, I just knew it was the direction I wanted to go, because I love their sound and their tone. And Mike made it happen for me. So,
Thank you. So let me see if I can do this now. Share screen, desktop.
Don't share your taxes.
Believe me.
Yeah, that stimulus check, boy.
Don't hold your breath.
That stimulus check kicked in for some folks now. Oh boy.
So I may not be able to do this. I'm not technically talented enough. I was going to show you guys the first bass I ever built.
Hey, Michael, are you on a computer?
Yeah.
So in the middle of the bottom toolbar, is there a green button that
Yeah,
says
it
share
says
screen?
share screen. I don't know how to get the file into it though. This is the problem.
Open up the file on your computer, and then you'll share your screen.
Yeah, put it on your desktop.
All right.
Put it on your desktop.
Desktop. Okay.
And then open it.
Allow Zoom to share your screen. Open system preferences. Zoom. Yes. Okay. Not be able to record the contents of your screen until it's quit. So this means if I quit, I shut you guys off.
Above my pay grade, I'm not sure.
Wait, Mike, do you want to email me the picture and then I'll share it?
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
Later. Is this to Dino?
No, Joe.
Joe. All right. Sorry. I couldn't hear who was talking. Forward mail. I can't type, so bear with me. Joe Fazio. Then I'll tell you a very strange story about this ignorant little bass. I've never played bass on stage. I was a guitar player, more or less than more actually. And a young man named Carl came into my shop one day in Orlando, and Carl was Lionel Richie's twin, only he was 5'2". And he had been trying to play this Fender P bass forever. And it was like just to reach the E. So he wanted a bass that he could actually maneuver on. Did it come in, Joe?
Yep, got it.
Okay. So he wanted it with a really narrow neck, and he could deal with the 34-inch scale if I made it hang more to the right so he could reach the first fret. So not knowing any better, never having built a bass, I looked at Carl's P bass and measured from the outside of the pickup to the outside strings, and then routed the pickup so that it matched the Fender. But with a 2.5-inch, yeah, there you go. With a 2.5-inch bridge versus a 2-inch bridge, you can see how cramped the P bass pickups are.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So the 2 inside strings were twice as loud as the 2 outside strings.
Because they had dual pickups.
Twice as loud? That's hilarious.
Twice as loud because it had 2 coils. The 2 outside strings only had a single coil each. So all of my training had been in making acoustic instruments. I had repaired broken peg heads. I had done a fret job. I had wired 1 switch in my life before we started building this.
Wow.
So I was into carving. I did, all the carving and stuff I did. I didn't make the actual bridge, but I made the tailpiece. That's an alembic bass bridge. And back then, the pickups said high A. I think the jazz bass says high A. The P bass says Bartolini. So when I got it done, obviously it didn't work very well. And I called Duncan, DiMarzio, anybody who made pickups and told them what I did. And all they did was laugh at me. And when I was an idiot. What did I know? When I called Bartolini, Bill said, "Oh, I can fix that." So he made this next set of pickups, and the coils in each of the dominoes are only half. So he got it wound to the strength of a P bass, but the sensing area only covered the 2 strings. So I didn't have to reroute it and do any more bizarro inlay work to cover my mistakes. But that was the first bass I ever made.
So where is that bass now?
In my closet.
I
actually bought it back. Norm played it. I bought it back from Jim Grayson about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, Jim Grayson had that in his house, and I went down to Florida for something, and he ends up pulling this out, and he's like, it's so funny because you were like looking for a picture, and I was just about to send Joe that picture so you could talk about it, but we have on the same wavelength. But yeah, I will tell you that for your first attempt at a bass, that thing is killer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the playability was slamming from awesome.
Well, Mike, were you the first person or the first builder to reverse the P bass? Because of you, I can't stand standard P bass. I like reverse P bass.
No, I don't think I'm the first. It could be, I could be backwards, that the original Spectre with that weird sort of trapezoidal pickup.
Oh, okay.
I remember that. That was a DiMarzio pickup, I think, that Stewart made his own little epoxy mold because he didn't want it to look like a P bass. But what I know about electronics, you can put in a thimble and still pour a shot of whiskey in. So after Bill saved my bacon on that one, we got to be friends, and I would tell him what I wanted to hear, and he would make prototypes and send them to me. So Clyde still does that. I couldn't tell you. I'd be in deep trouble if I had to tell you how any of this stuff really worked if it wasn't made of wood. But essentially, I can describe what I want to hear, and he can make it come out that way. And when we did the pickups at Tobias, there was more than enough bottom end in the instrument to begin with. And splitting the coils and reversing the P bass so that the bass side was closer to the bridge, those pickups still only saw the string like a jazz bass because the coils weren't wide and flat like a P bass. They were tall and thin like a jazz bass. So while they were hum canceling and resembled a P bass, they still saw the string like a jazz bass pickup does. So a P bass being wide and flat has a wider magnetic field and more capacitance in the winding because of the physical shape of it. If you turn that pickup on its edge, so it were thin and tall, it would sound like a jazz bass. So this is kind of dumb, but all of us who make basses, ever since I can remember, just wanted to make a better jazz bass. We've gone all the way around the moon and back to try to do that. And it is, it's an inspiration, but it's a tribute to Leo in some respects, that the jazz bass has become the industry standard no matter what you do.
Right.
And so back in the late 70s, when we were all beginners, that was what we were aiming at, to try to make it less noisy, more playable, more articulate, but still retain that particular bite and top end from a jazz bass. That's where those pickups started. But anyway.
Awesome.
I have a question. What
Yeah.
do you think that, which came first? Like, do you think that Leo was that brilliant? And
No.
I'm not saying that he wasn't,
No.
but I'm wondering if it's that he built the perfect bass tonally right off the bat, or is it that because of the fact that popular music began to get played on Fenderish instruments, that what we consider like a really good mix and everything kind of not fighting each other, like, you know how Fenders, you pull it up in the mix and it's immediately good.
Do you guys know who Doc Kaufman was?
No.
I've heard that.
Doc was
No.
Leo's first partner. It was Doc's chicken coop they built amplifiers and basses in to start with. K&F, Kaufman and Fender amplifiers in the late 40s. Doc was building lap steels along with Adolf Rickenbacker and Kiesel, Vinny and Carvin is Carl and Vinny Kiesel. The boys now have gone back to Kiesel, the grandsons. But I actually have a Kiesel lap steel from the 30s up on my shelf.
Wow.
It's number 206, and it actually still works. It's really cool. And I have a little 8-inch speaker K&F amplifier, which is even funnier still. But all those guys built lap steels, tried to make amplifiers, and tried to put this stuff together. Leo was brilliant at organizing people. God rest his soul. Everything is the way it is because Leo was first. And everybody learned to do it on Leo's instruments. Deserves every bit of credit possible for getting us all started.
Wow.
But Leo did things that were expedient. And as a business owner, sometimes you have to do that. There's a story in Forrest White's book and Forrest was the shop foreman for a number of years, I think. They got in a load of lumber that Forrest told them not to use because it was full of bugs. And we've all experienced wood beetles that eat their way through the base and come out to the lacquer and cannot get through the lacquer. So they leave little white spots. They're really obnoxious little things. You can't kill them by kiln drying them. You can't kill them by spraying poison on them. You can't kill them by putting cancer-causing lacquer on them. There's nothing you can do. When they want to hatch, they hatch and eat their way through the instrument. There was in 53, I think, there was a very famous country artist who was playing live on Texas radio, Dallas or wherever. And back then they didn't have the delay. So if you swore live on radio, it would actually get out. And this was one of the instances that caused the radio transmission delay. This guy's playing along, wailing along on his Telecaster, and all of a sudden it's, "You son of a..." And then they cut him off because the bugs were coming out through his Telecaster and calling up his shirt.
Yeah.
Wow. And he flipped out and wrote Leo a very hideous letter saying he would never, ever play a Fender again in his life, and he didn't. It's in the it's in the Norm Stockton, sorry. in the Forrest White book that he published on Fender. But Leo was brilliant at a lot of things. But making ends meet and keeping your business running makes all kinds of people do things they shouldn't do. And I don't think it was foresight. I think it was just being in the right place at the right time. And there's nothing wrong with that. And no reason.
Hey, Mike, that first base, is that a piece of cola?
That's all started. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that until just now.
Yeah, the back is regular color. That was a 2-inch thick piece that Michael Gurian sent me. And I didn't have a planer or big woodworking machinery. So I took it to this wood shop and the guy said, "Oh, no, Rob, I'll just plane this right down for you." And ran it through a planer without paying attention to the grain direction and shattered it. So by the time I was done with him getting it smooth without big tear outs in it, it went from 2 inches thick to 3/4 of an inch thick. I've never been as close to killing anyone in my life.
Call your wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michael,
hey, can I tell you how I first met Mike? Well, okay. I grew up playing bass, but then I was in church and they did a service and I did the service playing bass and got a compliment from one of them big time New York preachers and everything. And after that service, my dad says to me, he says, "You know, it'd be okay if you play that organ." And I looked at my dad, I was like, "Man, I'm a bass player." And I realized as soon as I said it, he gonna kill me. So I ran, and we were still in the church. I ran and I jumped on the organ, I turned it on. Oh, look, I got something going. So I played organ for years. And then when I wanted to go back to bass, I got big hands and I needed a bass that fit my hands because playing at the first fret, at the nut, it was a lot of those basses out there today, they're still too tight for me. So I tried a whole bunch of different basses, and then I had a modulus graphite 5-string, and yeah, it was cool, but yeah, it didn't bend. If you like pulled on a string, like it wouldn't do it. It just stayed there. It's weird. Anybody play graphite, modulus graphite, they know what I'm talking about, right? So I was shopping for different basses, and then I saw an MTD, and hey, it's interesting, and I played it. And the thing is, I had enough room to play it. So that was cool. And then I got it and I had little buzzing and different noises coming out of it because, well, I hadn't been playing bass in a while and, you know, the Fender thing back in the day. So I wanted to get into it. So I called Mike Tobias up and I heard different guys, Andrew, David Dyson, different cats playing it, and they sound great, right? So I told him, I said, yeah, I'm getting a lot of noise out of it. And this guy says to me, well, I don't make a forgiving bass. And then he said, hello? Hello? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll call you back. So I had to go into my little woodshed. Luckily for me, there was a little issue with the bass. And I took it up to New York. And he looked at it. He looked at me play, and he adjusted it, and it's been fine. But I met a cool guy, and I clicked with him. And, dude, we've been friends ever since. I'm proud of the product. I promote it. Mike's a great guy. That's all.
Flattery will get you almost everywhere, young man.
Hey, about some money. We were talking about that stimulus. I'm not going to get one.
It doesn't look like we are either, so you're not alone.
Michael, I had a quick question for you. My particular combo, I don't really see too often, which is ash and ebony. That's what I like. It's what my Lull signature is. Any reason why, like that combo over the years? I mean,
ebony top on an ash body
board and an ash body.
It works great. It's sharp. It's got a little compression in the top end. It's a bit stingy when it's new, but as it warms up, it's perfectly articulate. I was actually allergic to ebony for a number of years. The dust would make my skin turn bright red. So I didn't use it for the longest time. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But it's not the warmest, sweetest combination, depending on your pickups and rig.
Well, that's Tony too. He's not warm and sweet, so.
He's aggressive and brash.
Well, then that's.
And I admit it. When you got to cut through 4 drummers a night, that's what happens. But
hell yes.
I do cut back my high. I do cut back my highs a little.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Because the top end's a little plinky, like the last octave on a piano.
Pretty much, yeah, it can be. But I mean, I also wire my pickups in series.
Okay.
So that loses a little high end.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to cut back a little bit of the highs a little bit. And if the strings start dying.
Yeah. Are you using nickel or stainless?
I'm using the progressives. Jon Moody could probably tell you more.
Nickel iron.
Nickel
All right,
iron.
so nickel iron is warmer than stainless. So that helps a lot to take the stinginess out of the top end. The thing about stainless is not magnetic. So while you have a large winding stainless string, the magnet only sees the core. The magnet doesn't see the winding. So you get the reaction of this fat wound string and you get the low notes out of it. But if you use a nickel iron string and the magnet sees the entire, like on a 130 stainless, the magnet only sees about 30 thousandths of the string, depending on what the core size is. On a nickel iron 130, it sees the whole 130 thousandths. So then it reacts differently in the field.
And the stainless actually lasts longer, doesn't it?
Depends on your fingers.
Yeah.
Depends on your finger grease. Stainless, I think, dies slower and more steadily. It doesn't just like die. But I've been using stainless strings since probably 1980. So I'm pretty tuned to them. We offer nickel strings, but I don't usually install them. So I'm really not used to what they sound like. But mechanically, the difference is that the magnet doesn't see the stainless steel.
Does everybody here use stainless or nickel?
Stainless.
Stainless.
Nickel iron.
Stainless.
I use whatever I need to. And that's just more of just because I work at a string company, I kind of have to.
John, which string company? Sorry to be a dummy.
Oh, GHS.
Show me your hand.
Which actually, that's how I met you first, Michael, because a bass player live, and I was working the booth with Larry Halsey.
Yep.
Who is one of your reps from
way back on Cahuenga Boulevard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
so,
his dad started with it. His dad.
Right.
Yeah.
And that must have been, I think it was the first time I actually went out. So I was very, very green behind the ears. It was my first ever bass player live, first ever thing in the music industry in that capacity.
Yeah.
And I remember walking back from the bathroom, Larry's talking with you, and Larry goes, "Hey, John, I want you to meet." And I kind of pushed Larry away and says, "You need no introduction, sir."
Oh, God. That's pretty scary, actually. You know, you guys have been a blessing for me for all these years. And
Right back at you, buddy.
Yeah, right back at you, Mike.
I don't know how to say this, but I build instruments because I like to. It's not a job. But what all of my customers have done for me is irreplaceable. And all you guys deserve a toast. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
So GHS was it's a wonderful company. They made everybody strings for the longest time. And great bunch of people.
We actually still have a Kingston Zephyr 5 in the office.
Zephyr?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was all right. So the Z was originally the Zephyr until I realized that Epiphone Zephyr was owned by Gibson, and I had already been beaten up by Gibson twice and decided not to get sued by them again. So we changed it to a Z bass. Yes. Politics.
Hey, Norm sent me some photos of the original bass that I just want to share with you guys.
Sure.
Quick. All right, can you guys see the screen?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this looks
Yeah,
like
the AS and the fingerboard was from my friend Alan Strain, who unfortunately passed from cancer at the age of 35. But yeah, that bass was built for Carl as a fretted bass. Alan decided he wanted it fretted or fretless. And so it has graphite in the neck under the fretboard, and Alan's initials in it.
The headstock is the beginning of your Tobias headstock, right?
Yeah, that's the synthesis of the famous New York headstock. And so all the old jazz guys in New York had these giant headstocks that were way too big and clumsy looking. And for some reason, I thought they were still cool. So that's where that started.
Mike, how's my prototype 630 doing?
It is living right here in storage very comfortably.
It should be comfortably in my bass room.
Well, we may be able to arrange that at some point. It's a really sweet bass, but it's the first one we made, so Daniel kind of wanted to keep it.
Well, I was the first one who demoed it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Hey, Michael.
I tell you something. That was one that I did not want to give back. I'll be honest.
Well, we haven't sold it. It's still here, so we'll keep it in the family.
Oh, I love that bass.
What's going on with Kingston? Or do you not want to get into it?
No, business is just a mess. Everybody's shut down. Nobody's working.
But you brought it back stateside.
Yeah, we have it here. It's in a warehouse about 20 miles from here out in a little town called Mount Tremper. And I've got a couple of guys who are quite good at what they do, going over everything, inspecting, setting up. But with the world in lockdown, nothing's going out the door.
What models are still, did anything change in terms of the availability, coronavirus notwithstanding, did anything change in terms of the line when Dana got out of it?
Yes. The Chinese factory that makes them decided they wanted multiples of 6 of everything. So I can't order 4 of these, 2 of these, and 6 of those. So we've had to pare it down a bit to the things that sold the most. There are still Super 5s, Z5s, a few KZXs, Saratoga 5s. There are very few 4s because we're not selling a lot of 4 strings. And the colors are barely more limited. We have a fair amount of stock, but at this point, until the economy comes back, and the guys in China, I mean, their factories working at half speed.
Yeah.
So they're not in Wuhan. They're not that close, but they're taking all kinds of precautions. And it's not a big factory, but it's actually a very good factory. So they're being careful and safe.
Is the CRB still being made?
No, but I actually ordered 4 or 5 of them because I really love that bass.
Still got mine.
And that was a bass that Chris, rest in peace, helped me design. And I didn't want to lose his input, legacy,
Contribution.
Yeah, and he's been around here forever. And I still miss him. He was a curmudgeon and hysterical.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Hey guys, listen, I gotta go. I gotta feed my family, man.
All right, Andrew, thank you, man.
Thanks for coming on, Gooch.
Love you, brother.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great hanging with you guys, man. All right, brother. Y'all take it easy.
Peace.
See ya.
Thanks, Ben.
Norm, that bass was number 967. I looked. I found it.
The first one?
Okay.
First one.
Nice.
My
Did you say
first
you
one was
still have it?
374.
No, I don't have it anymore. I had to sell it back in 2012. No,
Gotcha.
on hard times. But it went to somebody that I trusted. Like
They still have it?
he still has it. He's done in New Orleans.
You did good.
And but I still have the pictures that I posted on Facebook. 8 years ago, and I could hardly read it, but I could read it. It was 967. Yeah.
Awesome.
First one. Oh.
That's dope.
Joe,
Yes?
are we done, or what do you think?
No, if you guys want to keep going, we can keep going. It's up to y'all.
What? No, if there's a,
964.
Hey guys, this is Tony. I gotta jump off. I'm getting texts. I'm gonna go read with my girls. But
Tony, thank you.
I want to say thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
And Joe,
Tony, thank you, Bo.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony.
Probably follow Tony out as well. I got some
Pizza.
stuff to finish up here before.
Y'all see my son kept coming in.
Yeah, so-
All right,
Your
so
bass
maybe we
player.
should just call it a night.
Yeah, we can just call it, man.
Gentlemen,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll call
for
you.
everything.
It's good seeing you, Mike.
Actually had to pee for like an hour.
What's in the cup, Mike?
I just didn't want to say
Huh?
nothing. I've been killing this water, man.
What's in the cup, Mike?
Bourbon tonight.
Oh.
I drank all your tequila.
That was good stuff, huh?
That was great tequila.
Hey, whoever
I'll
wants
get
to
you
stay
some
on, I'm not opposed to staying on. We got nothing else to do, so.
Well, unlike
I'm
you
about
fellas,
to-
I
No,
got a
thank
day
you.
job.
Right.
Yeah, Jonathan's actually working for a living.
I'm working.
I mean, the bedroom's my office now, and it's one of those, the factory itself, production-wise, is shut, but thankfully we're still shipping things.
That's scary when you said that. It sounded like you were a man whore or something.
No.
That's
Well,
my
Ow, ow,
office.
ow, ow.
Oh, it's a tough world out there now. So
You're working it.
We're all in the music business. That's yeah.
Jonathan, what is your role with GHS?
chief janitor.
Welcome to the
They're-
club.
They're
Yeah.
not
So,
making you clean up on the air compressors, are they?
what?
Well, the guy who owns GHS, I forget the old man's
Robert
name.
McPhee.
Yeah, they also own an air compressor company called Sailor
They
Beal.
sure do.
Yeah, the noisiest air compressors on the planet, but they are really good. They're just loud.
They do the huge, like, gigantic construction grade.
Oh God, yeah, there's like a whole semi truck for one.
Yeah, I actually, one of those air compressors shares an exterior wall with my office, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you know when it's on.
They're brutal. They're
But no,
brutal.
Dino, my job, aside from what the fancy title is, a lot of it's just, I would say, more operations stuff. I do a lot of the product development and design and things that way. Work with production to get stuff through that. Work with the sales staff to make sure they get what they need, because before jumping on here, my past life was graphic design. So with that, it just all falls into, oh, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Well, I do a lot of website maintenance, which is actually, that's been at least my nice thing here of working at home, is that there were a ton of our website integration things that we were trying to work on that you just can't work in the office, because somebody comes in, you talk with them, you end up doing something else. So I've been doing a lot more of that. Then artist relations, then sales for whatever. It's just basically as much as I'm sure Ampeg's the same way, is that as much as it's a global brand, it's a very small company.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And you just pitch in wherever you can.
Yep.
Yeah, I get you. Cool.
So,
Right on.
well, yeah, have a good night, gents, and I hope to talk to you all soon.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you for the
guys.
history lesson, Michael.
Sounds
It
good.
was fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing, Mike.
My pleasure.
Right on.
You guys
Love you,
take
buddy.
good
Be
care.
careful out there.
Be safe.
Later,
Stay
guys.
well.
Will do.
Cool, guys.
God bless you guys.
Norm, you staying on? Norm, you staying on?
You and I were going to chat about some tech stuff, right?
Yeah.
We could do it as a separate thing, though, if you want.
I'll see y'all. I'm about to go pee.
TMI. Way TMI.
Information.
Bubby.
Hey, Bubby.
Maybe a
You
home
gotta
for
hang
us.
with me,
I
man.
will. Babe, Mike, and everybody said hi.
Yeah.
Haley.
I got to say, out of all this, the one thing I look forward to at some point, whether it's an AM show or baseball or whatever, coming up and hugging all you guys at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
We're in
We'll
the
be
next,
able to,
before
man.
we get too much older.
Yeah.
Bless you all. Adam,
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah, dude.
Joe, John, Norm, and Bubby.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Love
for
y'all,
that.
All you
man.
guys.
I was bummed. I plan on going to New York to pick
Good.
up my bass.
I'll be here.
All right, y'all.
Take care, all. God bless you.
Take
You
care,
guys.
Good night, guys.
Peace.
How you get out of this?
Right.